All right, so in order to remove the background, we are again going to make the selection of the subject and then invert it. So the best tool again for that is the object selection tool. Let's just quickly draw and circle this area. It's going to recognize the watch. And if it's really doing a good job, hopefully it should also recognize this area. Does it? Did it? No. So we just have to now, remember, this is the surface of that light box. So what we can do here is now we need to subtract this, right? So again, we'll still use our object selection tool, but hold down Alt Option. So that if I hold down this and then just encircle this part and give Photoshop the task of recognizing this. But because I was holding down Alt Option, this is going to subtract it, hopefully, yes. Now, has it done a perfect job? No, it has gone a bit out here, and also slightly imperfect here. And for these, whenever these small areas are there, we can just take the lasso tool and add or subtract. So I'm just going to take the lasso tool, zoom in. Let's correct this first. Some problems here also. So you can see, right, in these kind of edits, because this is not as straightforward as that bottle, right? Because this just has too much intricate design going on here. So sometimes, yeah, with these selection tools, you can encounter these issues, okay? It's not too uniform, basically. But now that we have our lasso tool here, we have our existing selection. Let's quickly just add this, okay? We don't really need AI for this. So I can just hold down Shift, and even if I miss, it's not 100% perfect, that part is okay. Just draw it like this. Is going to add this one also. Right. Then there was an issue right here. So let's just add this. And that's fine. Just a bit of this. So every time I'm holding down either Alt or Shift, Alt Option to subtract, Shift to add. So now I'm holding down Shift. Need to add this. This is definitely a part of the bottle. This little part here also. Let's add this again. Right, I think we are pretty much done with this. Let's just, like I said, these kind of errors, just go through the boundary once and just notice everything. I think that looks pretty good, right? So now that we have been able to do this, we can create a layer mask just like we did last time. So we're going to hit layer mask, but this time, remember, we are continuing with the same edit. So underneath, we have this layer, the smart filter. So what we can do is right now, just disable this. This was just done so that maybe in case we felt the retouching was not good, we'll just have to start the process again, but at least we would have had this step done and just click on camera raw filter and change the settings, right? Don't think that's going to happen here. So we can just hide this right now so that when I open up the layer mask on this, we just basically see the empty background. Because if this was there, then I would have seen this, okay? Last time we didn't have this issue because we had exported. So that's fine, no problem. A lot of ways of doing different things. The main thing is we've got our selection, we've got rid of the background. Now remember, before we start with the generative fill part, especially in these kind of hard edges, there's a very good chance that these edges are jagged, okay? So this time, let's just correct that. So again, with the layer mask selected, we're going to go back to our select and mask tool for this, just like we did last time, because this is where we'll be able to also verify that, yes, those edges are not looking good. Now, what we can do here is in the view, let's select on white, because this product is dark, right? Like a lot of blacks, a lot of dark edges. So we'll be able to see the worst case scenario on white. So let's select white here. Make sure the opacity is set to full so that we're not seeing the transparent background. So it's just for a preview, okay? And now if we zoom in, we'll be able to see that, yes, right? If you notice, these edges are not looking good. Oh, you can see here, right? So this wouldn't have looked good at all, especially if you're planning to kind of take printouts of this. To be frank, if you're using for social media, you probably don't have to do this, but you can even see at this zoomed out level, doesn't look good, right? So we can just increase the smooth slider. So keep an eye out on this. Yeah, definitely looks better than before. Anytime you want to see the before, you can just hit show original. Okay, so this is the original. This is after smoothing. Original, after smoothing. And why not? Let's actually take it all the way, because I think we really need those soft edges here, okay? So I think that is fine. All right. Now just quickly see the before and after. All right. And that looks good. We're going to hit OK. One thing, what has happened here is that when I was using the lasso tool, okay, one thing I forgot to do was that this was so whenever you select the lasso tool, this is an option that says feather. Okay. And oftentimes what happens is I'm also working along with creating this course, I'm working on some separate images also. For example, when I'm working on some faces, and we're using like on the skin when I'm using this tool to make some selections, we actually feather the selection and it kind of becomes very soft on this part, like you can see here. So I left the feathering because I was working on an image which required feathering, but actually here I did not need it. Now, is it too much of a difference? If later on I feel this is causing too much of an issue in the final image, we'll use generative fill to correct it, okay? Because right now there doesn't really make sense that I should just undo everything and start all over again. This is too small an issue, okay? So I think we'll just continue with this. And it'll also be a good idea to see that, yes, if in case some things go wrong like this, which they usually do in Photoshop, you were doing something else, some settings remain, it's all right. It's not that big a deal in case, unless and until it's just come at a lot of places and it's very evident, okay? So if it's too much of an issue, we'll correct this later. But I think right now, just for speed's sake, we'll continue with the edit here. So what is the next part? The next step is to get the proportions right. So this time what I've decided is that I'm gonna not go for a portrait-like look, like the Instagram look with the 1:1 square ratio. This time, let's actually go for a slightly more landscape orientation, okay? So when we go to our crop tool, remember last time we selected 1:1 for Instagram. This time, I thought first that maybe we can go for 16:9, but I just thought that this was too narrow, like even in the landscape way, this was like too wide basically, okay? So I selected then, you can also, if you go to ratio here in the crop tool, you can also specify your own ratio, okay? So 4:3 wasn't here, but 4:3 is also a very popular landscape orientation ratio, like a horizontal ratio, but it's at the same time, it's not too wide, okay? Because what we're gonna do in this edit is we'll try to get a lot of stuff in that background, like a lot of objects and props. So I just thought instead of square, which gives us very less space, we'll go for something more horizontal. And it'll be a good difference from the last edit also. So I think something like this is fine. And remember, all we need to do now is just make sure this watch is inside that and hit enter. So, or you can just hit this check mark. It's just going to crop this. And now what we can do is we can first of all just make sure, yeah, this is full here. And then take our move tool, hit the shortcut control command T, and then just make this smaller. Okay, so just downscaling this to somewhere where we feel like last time, yeah, this is how big this should be, okay? I think something like this much should be fine. And the rest of the scene now is going to be filled with AI. So this is obviously the main part of this course. So let's handle this in the next video. All right, welcome back. So let's get started with the next step, which will be to generate the background using AI here. I'll also be talking about why directly I'm not, first of all, just going over to Firefly and generating the background and then just kind of superimposing this watch there. Because at this stage, we can actually do that, right? Because you've already seen that the AI background generated by Firefly is way superior than what we get with Photoshop here, right? So I'm just going to be talking about that because in this edit, I'm just going to show you something which can happen and which is slightly different from the first edit, okay? So I'll get to that point, but first of all, let's stick to the process that we have been seeing from the first edit onwards, which is at this stage, remember, we are looking for inspiration, so we go to Google first, right? So that was the step. So if I go to Google, if I type in wristwatch product photography, so remember this was the keyword and we were using this term product photography. So I was getting this. And in this particular edit, I was actually struggling a lot to find something good. There were a lot of good photographs, but nothing was really kind of sticking out. And I didn't also have some kind of a scheme in mind. That can also be possible. And in that case, just see as many shots as possible because there can be a lot of things going on in your head. For example, one part of me that time when I started this process was looking for something which was very minimalist and very sleek, okay, like very elegant and smart. So I was tempted to try something like this, like something which is plain but looks good. But then ultimately, I found this image, okay, the one that my mouse is hovering over right now on this left one, and I really like this. I I actually put this through that same thing through ChatGPT. We got the prompt. Then I used it in Photoshop, and let me just show you the some of the results here. Okay, so this was that image. So I was using this as the reference image to get the prompt, and when I input that prompt inside Photoshop on that inverted background selection using generative fill, I started getting results like this. And this was not bad at all, right? If you actually see from a minimalist point of view and also not using Firefly, this is just inside Photoshop. I think this was a pretty good result. Everything looked natural. And this can definitely pass off as a professional product shot, right? Problem here was I liked the lighting, I liked everything. I think because our reference image was so plain, we really didn't have too many props here or objects here. And that I wanted something which looked more photorealistic. And for that, I realized instead of going for this plain background, I might want to try reference images which have more objects. Okay. And again, this is subjective. You might like this, and then you want to take something like this into Firefly. This background is going to improve. But I wanted some objects. So my next image was something like this. Now here the perspective was not similar because this is like top to bottom, right? But that's not, again, very important. We're mainly looking at the feel of the shot. Because remember, this is just for the prompt, okay? So I like this wooden texture, the old book, and this leather thing here. And I thought, okay, this can be good. I sort of got decent results with like a book behind and all these things. But ultimately, I wasn't happy with this image also. Finally, I found this image, which was kind of similar to this one, okay? But here we had like this book and again this wooden table here. And this one gave me better results because when I put this prompt, or I rather got the prompt from ChatGPT using this image in Photoshop, I was able to generate something like this, okay? And this started to get close to what I wanted, like things which can look photorealistic, and there are some objects here also. Now, this is not Firefly. So we are going to take something like this over to Firefly. But at this point, I just want to say, like I said, this is a subjective process. If you want, you can follow along what I am doing, okay? Because what I'm going to do is I am also going to give you this image in that work along files so that if you want to exactly do right now what I'm doing, and then later on you want to experiment with your own stuff, you can do that also, right? Anything is fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this as our reference image and we are going to put this through ChatGPT. Now, something else also happened, okay, which can happen sometimes. So what happened was, I was using ChatGPT and I had my PDF open. I had copied this like this. So let's just do that. Remember, I've given you this thing here. You put it here and you type in the product is a men's wristwatch. Okay. Something like this. And I pressed this and I obviously attached the file and I pressed the go button. But what happened was sometimes on this free plan, if you've been using it a lot, you'll get a message like you can see in front of you, which will be like, the ChatGPT limit is full or something like that. And you will have to wait then for 24 hours. You'll still be able to use ChatGPT when it comes to using text. But anytime it comes to attaching the file, it won't allow. So this definitely, obviously, because it takes more computing power, they, I think, limit the amount of times you can do it. Now, that's because I keep doing this all the day long. Okay, so they are pretty liberal with this, but just know that this can happen if you're doing it again and again within a 24-hour period. Now, what's the alternative to that? So what I did was when this happened and I wasn't able to use that image, there's another alternative to ChatGPT, which is by Google, which is Gemini AI. Okay, this used to be called Google Bard AI, but now if you just type in Gemini AI, it's very similar to ChatGPT. So if I hit this, you'll just need your Google account. Again, it's free. And you can see the interface is very similar. And here also, you can see that I did the same thing. So it's showing me my recent prompts here. So I did this. I'll just be able to show you. So I just copied that thing here. I'm creating a background. This is exactly a copy paste of that. Men's wristwatch. This time, first of all, remember, I used this image. So at this point of time, actually, I was out of the ChatGPT limit. So I had to come back to Gemini and it gave me this prompt. I found Gemini AI prompts are slightly less descriptive, like they're just 1 or 2 lines as compared to ChatGPT, okay? But it worked pretty well. The image that I showed you was generated from the Gemini AI prompt inside Generative Fill. So then I put this image, as you can see here, and this time it kind of gave me a more elaborate prompt like this. Now, even I don't want to actually use this because now that we have ChatGPT enabled right now. This is going to be new for me also. Let's try the same thing because we have already seen what the results of this prompt are because we just saw this image. Okay. So I just want to see what is the difference between ChatGPT now. So this will be, something exciting for me also because I just couldn't use it yesterday. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we already have this attached. This time I'm doing it after 24 hours. So I'll be able to attach the file. So let me attach that reference file that I just showed you. Right. So here is our file. I'm just going to attach this and hopefully this time it will allow me. So let's wait for the prompt here. Let's also compare the prompts. Okay. It'll be fun. Like, let's just see what it's like a battle between the AIs. Okay, so can you see, like, this just seems bigger, right? They just more elaborate. So create a smooth dark wooden surface with subtle reflection placed on a well-lit table. I think, yeah, this is more detailed. So I'm hoping that this probably should result in something better. Now here, one thing that I've not done, which I did before, was that, remember last time when we used our reference image, we actually, like, I should have probably removed the watch. Another alternative to that is you can remove it from the prompt, right? It'll kind of be the same thing. So if we notice anything which says a watch here, we'll probably remove that, okay? So there are a lot of ways of doing the same thing. So right now, let's just see if this has the word watch in it, because the Gemini AI one had, and I had removed the watch from the prompt, okay? I just say small luxury accessory in distance to emphasize the watch, right? So there is a watch here. Sure, the lighting is warm and the focus remains on the watch area. All right, so we have, definitely this is watch oriented. So should I probably have removed this? Okay, let's do one thing. Let's just try this prompt, okay? Because it worked last time with the Gemini AI one. If it doesn't work, let's see what to do. Either we'll change the prompt or we'll come back by altering that image. So let me just hit Control Command and this to get our selection. Let's inverse this. Now we're ready. We've copied the prompt. Let's paste it here. And let's just see what this gives us. All right. So yeah, this is not bad, but it's nothing as compared to what we got with the Gemini AI prompt. So that means what ChatGPT generated here was pretty smooth. And these are not bad, right? You look at these shots. I really like this actually a lot. To be very honest with you, I actually like this more than what we had with the one with the windows behind. So yeah, sometimes this can happen. You just never know what's going to happen. What I'm going to do is I'm anyway going to save this image, okay? Because let's right now, just for the sake of it, let's go for the image that had stuff behind, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to save this image, and let me just do that. And then we'll probably try to just alter this prompt a bit in order to add some objects. And then let's see if it matches the Gemini AI prompt. All right, so I've just saved this, maybe in case we like this later on, because I really love the reflection here, okay? But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to ChatGPT, and now this is also something that you can do. So now we know that, yes, it's kind of working well, but we need something more. So what you can tell ChatGPT is just like you're talking to a person. This prompt was okay, but I also need some objects to be added, okay? So in the background. Then it's going to just modify that prompt for you. And if this one doesn't work, we'll just take the Gemini AI one again, okay? So it's not like it's not working. It's just that I'm trying to get and replicate what we had before, okay? So let's just try this one and let's see the results for this. All right, let's wait for this. Yeah, so now it started to add those objects, right? It has added that camera behind. I think this looks really nice. It doesn't look bad at all. Let's see. This one, the shadow is not that great, but that can be corrected. Wow, this one is also pretty good. Sometimes, and I'm going to be showing you in this edit most probably that if there's too much of a difference between the colors of the background that has been generated and the original image, that can happen. Because remember, this is shot in a different lighting. And for example, here we have some sort of a warm light, right? So then we'll need to match the lighting in order to make it look more realistic. So I'm going to be showing you that in this edit. But I think out of these three, I really like this one, okay? I'm also going to save this quickly, and then we're going to use the Gemini AI prompt. All right, so I've just saved that. Let's go back to Gemini and let me use what I got yesterday because I just did it once and this one did the job well. So let me paste this. So you can see, right, it can involve a bit of trial and error because now we have so many AIs these days that you just don't know which one does the best job. So let's just wait for this. All right. So you can see, right, the Gemini prompt is definitely very different. It is producing this, again, that same look that we were getting with the skyscraper and all these things, right? So this is good. And this is also not bad, but definitely I think the ChatGPT prompts resulted in a more realistic looking image for sure. Okay. But that's no problem. Even if we don't get a very realistic looking image right now, it's not such a problem because remember, we are anyway going to rely on Firefly ultimately. These are still our rough images, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to save this. And what we'll do is, actually, I was not planning on doing this. I just love what ChatGPT gave. So we have basically now, if you think of it, if you consider this, we basically have three images, right? The plain one, the next, the last one that we got with the objects, and this one, which is the Gemini AI one. We are actually this time going to be using these three images inside Firefly for the reference image. And the reason for that is sometimes you can do that. So sometimes you can actually generate the image inside Photoshop and use that as the reference in Firefly. It has one advantage over using something like this. Remember last time we used our original Google reference image in Firefly, but this time if you see, like if you were to compare this image and if you compare it with this or the other two images that we saved, these definitely look more superior, right? And this is something already closer to what we want with Firefly. So sometimes you can even put this image as a reference, okay? Again, a lot of ways of doing the same thing. Last time we had put the Google image as the reference. This time we'll put this as the reference in Firefly, give the same prompt, and then let's see what's going to happen. We're going to do that in the next video. I'll see you there.